you're back on the air. So is that, do you need multiple cell phones for your multiple
lives.
Professional and lives, like one for astrology, one for fertility issues, one for
different 1-800 numbers.
Yeah.
Actually, I did carry 2 cell phones for a long time because my work gave me a BlackBerry, and then I had a personal phone, and I kept 2 separate ones for a long time, but then finally I consolidated them into one, and my life's been much better ever since.
Oh my God! Thank God the South Node's out of Gemini. I was
exactly. Well, my other phone, my desk phone, is actually just ringing in the other room, but that's fine.
There we go.
So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that is. I should watch out for that.
That's right.
So hopefully it's a client, either astrological or legal, who has
I have no doubt.
Has a large, a very large retainer that they want to, they are anxious to hand over. So, I have considered hiring an astrologer on a retainer if I am ever, like a billionaire or something.
Exactly. Or you could just do your own, right?
Well, I actually go to somebody for my own because, my judgment, I have Neptune in the 5th, so my judgment on, certain matters is just not the best, and so I just go to somebody and I say, "You tell me what to do."
Yeah, this is very true. I always say to people, especially when you're doing things like horary or something where you're doing a lot of very specific predictive work, I always say, you probably should go to somebody else, even if you're the best astrologer. My success rate with my own charts is far below what I get with my clients. So
yeah, because it's like your emotions get into it, and then you want the best, and and then your astrologer's like, no, their Neptune is just aspecting all of your stuff. Like, are you crazy? You're totally confused. You're like, no, it's for real. No, it's not for real. Okay. Anyhow, speaking of predictive astrology, you mentioned that. So, I don't do too much of that. I mean, I do, on the show. I mean, we talk about the Uranus-Pluto years and, this type of stuff, but let's say, let's say somebody wanted to, they were concerned, a good example, this one, we talked enough about the economy, now talk about love. Our nun with her Bentley, now, perhaps nuns, I don't know what the rules are, but maybe she wants love too, so how does she comes to you, she's open-minded, and she's got enough for a nice retainer, because she's got a Bentley, and she says, I'm looking for love, how does she, can you predict when the time will be fertile for her to go looking for love?
Absolutely. I find that's actually one of the easier aspects of what I do. I think, predicting isn't too, in my opinion at least. For example, we could use different methods, right? We can do what a lot of astrologers do. It's kind of a more modern method where you look at the natal chart and you look at, for example, secondary progressions or transits or any of the other methods that say, hey, this year you're going to have Venus in the 1st house in your solar return, for example, and so it's going to be a very good time to be in a relationship or find someone. The other method, which is what constitutes, I would say, the bulk of my business, is horary astrology, where you just cast a chart for the time that you received the question, which seems awfully sort of attenuated, but it works extremely well, and it's been done for the last couple thousand years at least, if not longer. That's at least how long it's been documented. And again, if we saw something good happening with Venus or something like that, we would say, okay, in 2.5 months' time, I see that you might meet someone. So it's not too difficult. I would say the tougher part is having the client actually make changes if they need to in their lives to, welcome a certain energy into their life.
Yeah, I say this as much from experience in my own as from working with other people. When matters of the heart come up, what you want to hear is, oh yes, tomorrow, go down to the hardware store at 4:00, and there'll be a brunette standing in line, and you should talk to her. But it doesn't.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, it'd be great. So what you just said, I've done, and I'm sure other people do this, I just haven't heard it. I have done charts for emails that have either been sent to me if I wasn't sure what the real deal was. Mm-hmm. And I've also done charts for like emails, like because I never delete anything from my Yahoo account because it says there's like 50,000 messages in there. I guess that's the Mercury in Cancer, never letting go of anything.
That's right. Retain everything.
Yeah, and so I've even done charts for emails to see what was I thinking when I, sent that email. to get insight into my own psychology. But anyways, so you said Venus in the first in a solar return is good. Now, what about Uranus and Aries in the seventh? What is that? Because that's in my solar return for this year. So what's that?
No.
So what does that mean? I'm currently single, so could there be some shockingly wonderful woman about to come into my life?
Right. Well, maybe. I mean, is it aspecting anything? Is Uranus doing anything else?
I have to listen. Okay, well, I know there's a Saturn Moon conjunction in Libra in the first, in like 20 Libra, and I know Randy Macho Man Savage had that on his chart, so I don't know, maybe. I'm like, he had to work hard at working with other people, as a wrestler.
This is true.
This is true. I thought maybe I'm supposed to be like that on the air, but with radio rather than with wrestling.
Right. No, I think this is the important point. Definitely radio, not wrestling.
Yeah, because his job there was to make the other person look good, which apparently he was really good at. I thought, maybe I should focus on speaking less and making let the guest speak.
Well, this guest approves, I guess, of looking good. But I've had sort of similar. And so you said this is in your solar return this year, right?
Yes, and we'll just use this as an example, not to make it about me, but just so people get a sense.
We can totally make it about you.
No. Aries Moon. I'm Libra North Node. I'm supposed to be making it about the other person.
No, it's fine. But what I was just going to say is, with the Moon and Saturn, I get that a lot in my, in my own solar returns a lot for some reason. Every couple of years, they're usually conjunct. And I don't have a very good pattern established for that. But I think when it's in the first house, it can definitely impact your mood. So I would say maybe, unless Venus is involved in some kind of harmonious aspect, it might not be the best time to go out looking for a relationship, because you might be thinking, you're looking at things that will want to last, and you'll be very kind of discerning about, is this the person, the right one, or something like that. It's not a frivolous combination by any means.
Right. I thought, maybe I'd look hard. I would just be working. Libra likes to look good.
Right.
And so I'm going to work hard at looking good this year.
That's good. Exactly.
So no more leaving. Of course, obviously, I didn't follow my advice this morning, but luckily this is radio, not TV. No more Cancer going out in the sweatpants and the frumpy look.
That's right. That will not attract the ladies.
Yeah, I got to look. Get the jeans on instead of the sweatpants.
That's right. Go formal, California formal.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now also back to fertility. There was a question I had wanted to ask. Can you look at two people's charts and see if they will enhance each other's fertility, or make it can that you and him are going to be highly fertile, or no, you and him are not going to be you're fertile intellectually, but not physically.
Not physically, right. Yeah, the first step, I think, with any fertility consultation is you have to look at the charts individually just to get a sense of each person's fertility, right? Because I've seen marriages, where you'll have, for example, the wife actually is very fertile, but the husband is not. And so it's usually, I would say, limited by the less fertile partner, if that makes sense, at least physically. So, but that's actually really powerful, because you can say, okay, if he has fertility issues, obviously, you want to get to a health practitioner or a doctor or whatever to make sure he's in good shape.
That must just go over really well if it's the female as the client and she has to go home and tell that to her husband.
I bet, exactly. But, it's actually better often. By the time people come to me, I always say astrologers have to work twice as hard as anyone else, because we often get the last, last resort cases for just about everything.
It's you, and literally, and this is not anything against voodoo practitioners. I do know some voodoo practitioners here, but astrologer is in the phone book. It's the last stop before the voodoo practitioner.
Exactly. That's so true, And so I feel like actually by the time people come to us, they're just looking for information. I think they're usually past the point of denial. They've probably had that out with their doctor at some point. And often, the issue can be that, for example, whoever it is that has sort of the bigger fertility problems in the relationship, it's great because now they know who needs to get the checkup or who needs to, get treatment or whatever. So it saves them a ton of time and often money. So when you're looking at expensive procedures like, IVF or something like that, where you really need to know where the issues are in order to prevent having to go back for multiple $15,000 or $20,000 treatments. So
yeah. Now, I assume they probably used this in the old days? Like, I mean, probably still in the modern day, like the kings and queens and royalty. I mean, they check the king and whoever his potential queen is to see if there's going to be kids or.
Absolutely, I'm sure they did. Yeah. Actually, I have a fascinating story, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah,
telling.
go for it.
So it's not a personal story, but it's even better. It's royal gossip.
Oh, great, because I want to talk
yeah.
about Prince Harry too, if you know anything.
Oh, good. Yeah. So,
he's in the news these days.
So yeah. A little different than we're used to talking about. But this is the Japanese royal family, and I did an article on this some years ago on my blog, and it still fascinates me because it's about fertility. And so the royal family in Japan, they have two sons, basically. They might have more, but these are like the first one and the second one. But they each got married. And the one that's actually the crown prince, the one who's going to become, or I should say, who's going to become emperor after the current emperor dies, he married someone who was like, I think she used to be like a diplomat or something before they got married. So she very much, I remember she's a Sagittarius, so she very much had her own life and was pretty independent, I think especially for a more traditional society. And so they got married, but then I think they struggled with basically having a kid for many years. And I can't remember if they even now, but they did not for a long time. And one of the major reasons that was found for that was because the wife was struggling with depression. And my guess is it's probably because you go from kind of being a globe-trotting, person in charge of your own life and in charge of a lot of other people to having to be very sort of constrained by what to me seems an extremely, conservative and old-fashioned kind of, court rules and all this. So then, and if you looked at her chart, she doesn't have a very fertile horoscope, but of course all you need is just the one kid. But the interesting thing is that the younger son's wife has a spectacularly good chart for royal children. And this is because her fifth house, which is the house of babies and children, has a royal star on the cusp. It has Spica, which is at 24 Libra right there. So if you looked at the two women's charts, you could tell that it was going to be actually the younger son's wife who would have basically the following heir to the Japanese throne. And that's actually what ended up happening. So it's, you have to sort of look at these things, even like not just for the guy who's the crown prince, but you might look at the next few kids down the line in that same generation to get a sense of, okay, who's in a better place to, to have kids and, will it really come true for the guy that you think is next in line?
Yeah, obviously extremely valuable.
Right.
Both for the people and for anybody betting on these things over on the side. No, I'm just kidding. But speaking of royal family, do you know anything about I don't really follow it other than Kate Middleton and Prince. They seem. What's the guy's name? I just forgot. No, yeah, they seem pretty cool and kind of like them and then Prince Harry now, he's like talk about the redheaded stepchild of the family. He's like, you assume you saw the video or at least heard of the photos.
No, I'm not. You have to fill me in on this.
He, apparently now he's in the military. He's on leave in Vegas.
Oh,
and there is some very, very photos that he's like butt naked with a woman in what appears to be, shall we say, intimate congress.
Oh, great.
And this is, of course, what I read on some astrology blog that she looked at what's happening to the Mercuries of all the royal people. And so she's like, Uranus is hitting the Mercury of his dad. And so he's in utter shock. His is in I guess Neptune is hitting his Mercury, so or something, Prince Harry's Mercury. But it was really funny.
Bad, right.
But he's got Saturn in Scorpio in the midheaven, so he's having his Saturn return. I thought it was all much ado about nothing. I'm like, look, the guy's in the military, he's 27, he's on leave in Vegas, come on.
Exactly, what do you expect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that happened, and so he doesn't even seem to care. They were like expecting him to apologize, and he didn't. He was like, "Why should I apologize?"
Yeah, that's true. I guess nobody was harmed, presumably.
Yeah, I was like, "Ooh, go Prince Harry."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember. I haven't spent a ton of time studying the charts of the royal family. I feel like that's one of the things a lot of astrologers do, and no need to enter that crowded field. But I do remember John Frawley, who is my teacher and who's English. He always said that he believed that Prince Harry would actually become the next king, not Prince William, because Prince Harry has what's called a royal chart. He has more of what are called the royal stars prominently placed in the horoscope, whereas William does not.
That's so funny you say that, because last week I said that we were talking about this last week with a guest. I said, I hope he's the king.
You might just guess it, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, for one thing, those are going to be some bumping parties, okay? Like, if I'm voting for somebody, I want to know that the person is I was like, this tells me that he's a normal person. And so
right.
I can relate a little more. Who can't relate to something like, not maybe on that level, but, something, it's like some sort of.
More human.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Yeah.
So, yeah. So let's see, what else, do you do much with I was speaking of Saturn moving into Scorpio. My understanding in traditional astrology, Saturn's, the big heavy hitter. And if not, let me know. And, it's about to move.
It is.
And it's the Lord of Karma. And it's moving from sweet Libra into super intense Scorpio. So, whether we are in royal family or we are just Bovinian peasants here in West Sonoma County, what does that mean?
Well, a couple things. One of the things that interests me a lot is weather forecasting with astrology. So one of the things that you and your listeners should always watch out for when Saturn changes signs every 2.5 years is there's usually a pretty dramatic weather change or something like that. It tends to create some level of upheaval in the meteorological conditions. And so, keep your eyes peeled for that. I don't have the exact date for it handy, but I
think it's October 30th.
Okay, Halloween.
I know, exactly.
That is pretty spooky, I guess appropriate for Scorpio. So on an immediate level, that's definitely something to think about. The other thing that I would actually I'm fascinated to learn more about and just kind of watch this unfold is, I don't know if you're aware, but the current regime in Syria, when they started, I want to say it was back in the 70s. I have a chart for them, and basically when the new administration took place, and their horoscope is extremely strongly weighted on the Taurus Scorpio polarity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a feeling that they're going to be experiencing, they probably are going to fall as Saturn passes through Scorpio. Couple of reasons, not only because of Saturn, but also because of the two nodes. They're moving into.
Right. They already have, yeah.
They already have, actually, yeah. So by the time that Saturn enters, you're going to have all of these, impacts sort of like just, banging on their chart, and I'm sure it's going to cause them basically to fall.
Speaking of that, well, Mark Zuckerberg, not to compare him to the Syrian regime, although he does essentially control the largest digital.
He's a dictator of sorts, I think. That's right.
He is, and same Sun-Moon combination, Taurus Sun, Scorpio Moon is Hosni Mubarak.
Wow.
And I hate to say it, but, he kind of does have an attitude towards other people's resources, in this case their information, that right. Hosni Mubarak had towards Egypt's resources, that it actually all belongs to him. Right. And he's got his entire chart is is Scorpio Taurus, not just the Sun Moon, everything, a lot of Scorpio. So everything's in that axis, and we're not even into Saturn and Libra or Saturn and Scorpio yet. They're already getting kind of a reality check there at Facebook. And
that's right.
Do you see what do you say for somebody like Mr. Zuckerberg? Lord Zuckerberg.
Lord Zuckerberg, that's right. It's fascinating that you should mention that, because I spent some time looking at their IPO charts. I'm interested. I always do a little bit of stock investing, and of course, if I can use astrology to combine that, so much the better, right? So one of the things that you might be aware of is that the eclipse that we had in June, basically their IPO was the day before the eclipse. And maybe you've already mentioned this on your show, so I don't want to go over.
We talked about it a long time ago, but I don't remember. And
yeah.
It's bovines. You have to remind us bovines. So this is all new, basically.
Okay, thank you. That's very kind of you. So what I was going to say is that itself, and I can't remember if that eclipse was in a mutable sign or if that was the one that was already in the Taurus Scorpio polarity. Unfortunately, I don't have that info in front of me, but what that tells me is that's an opening salvo for Mark Zuckerberg, and I wouldn't be surprised if before Saturn leaves Scorpio and before the nodes or his Scorpio polarity, he might also either end up leaving or, his role at Facebook is going to be greatly transformed.
Well, it's so interesting you mentioned that because had not studied this. I just looked at his chart and what I have ascertained from writing about, what goes on in politics beneath the surface and in the financial system beneath the surface. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, this guy, he's very young and he thinks he doesn't get it that he's not really one of the big boys.
Right.
The big boys are going to he's going to play ball with the big boys or the big boys are going to move him out one way or another.
I think you're right.
And I kind of got the vibe. I'm like, dude doesn't know what he's heading for.
Right.
I look up the charts of a lot of companies. I use I guess maybe you can illuminate this for me. I always just look up for when they were first founded, not for the IPO, but the IPO would be more relevant for like stock investing. I just like to figure out what like the personality of the company. So like AIG, the insurance company, which was also heavily involved in covert operations during World War II, called the Secret. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. But Sag Sun Scorpio Moon. All right, check this out. Same Sun-Moon combination as Scarface, based on the premiere date. So here's the one for Facebook, based on the date, not the IPO. What's the one for the IPO? The Sun-Moon.
Oh, let me see if I can find that. Why didn't you look up what you're doing, and then if you just give me a minute, I'll look it up here.
So this is one of those ones where it's kind of scary when you think about the fact that the Harveys were trying to be optimistic here. Wait, it's Sun in Aquarius.
So go ahead.
Okay, so we'll do Sun in Aquarius and Moon in Cancer is for the Sun in Gemini. This makes for lovely radio as I flip through here. But trust me, folks, it's worth it. All right. A childhood memory becomes the basis of a new world order.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, yeah, we're all going to be in some digital freak show, is what it's saying.
All right, I would argue.
I know, but it's going to get worse.
That's right.
But that's kind of, so that is for Facebook. So what's for the IPO?
So the IPO, I'll give you the date as well. So it's May 18th, 2012. And the time is 9:30 a.m. because that's market open Eastern Time, New York, New York. And the sun is in Taurus and the moon is in Taurus.
Oh, so it's all about
because it's the day before the eclipse, right? So of course they're in the same sign.
So all about the dollar bills.
Yeah.
And also, but expressing as a Scorpio, also possibly.
Right.
Okay, so it's sun in Taurus, moon in Taurus. I could have sworn I looked at that one. I thought I knew by heart. Okay. A successful baker surrounded by delighted children eating fresh bread rolls.
No, are they ever? Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe digital
Some
bread.
Of them are.
Digital bread rolls.
That's true.
But what's in the bread?
Right. So true.
Is this nutritious bread or is this
Wonder Bread.
Yeah, exactly. They don't mention that. That's a good one. I like the Mercury Pisces imagery there.
Mm-hmm.
So Facebook. Are there any other companies that you've?
Let's see. Well, so Facebook is the most, I say, interesting, and it's a good reason. Don't do anything like this a week before an eclipse. It's just a waste of money. But let me see who else I have. I have a whole corporate database that I've sort of been maintaining for a long time.
Here's a good one. I'll just mention while you
go ahead.
Up. I did all the intelligence agencies based on their date of founding. Okay, Julian Assange from WikiLeaks. He's a Cancer, Sun, Scorpio, Moon.
Oh wow.
The Secret Service, based on their date of establishment, is Cancer, Sun, Scorpio, Moon.
Oh.
And there's a movie called Escape from New York, where Kurt Russell has to go into New York, which is a prison, and rescue the president and secure a briefcase with state secrets in it, which turns out to be launch codes. And I did the chart for the film, and that's Cancer, Sun, Scorpio, Moon too. So anyway, do you have any?
Yeah, I have something good. Yeah. It's actually not a company, it's a person.
Oh, okay, good.
But if we're on, like evil overlord.
Oh, yeah, let's do a evil overlord tip.
So this one is for Rupert Murdoch.
Oh, brother.
Yeah. So it's actually, he's got a lot of water in his chart, which is interesting.
Deception.
Deception, yeah. Covert movements.
Yeah.
So he's actually March 11th, 1931. So he's a Pisces in Melbourne, Australia, 1159. And so what he is, he's a Sun Pisces.
I'm sorry, something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, multiple. So what does that mean? So Pisces Sun, Sag Moon. What is your take on Pisces Sun, Sag Moon?
Well, it's interesting because, so again, from a more traditional perspective, we don't kind of do the little cute personalities. So I totally do that just for fun, and I'm up for it. But I think if I was looking at this for a client or somebody like that, what's interesting about his chart is it's actually, if you look, the moon is in the fourth quarter. And what that means is that his moon is actually, it's in a fire sign, it's in Sag, but it's in the fourth quarter, which is considered phlegmatic or watery. So on a very deep or emotional level, he seems like a really conflicted person. Even though I think he's really good at presenting kind of like a, united front and whatever for his business purposes. But he seems like somebody who is, I would say, very emotionally all over the place. Which is sort of interesting in a lot of ways. He's got Capricorn rising, which I think makes him seem much more, kind of together and serious than he probably is in reality.
Right. Here's the image. This actually sounds like it could make for a good Fox show.
Oh, I bet.
A black woman priest in confessional hears a tale of woe from a white converted scientist, and they fall in love.
Wow. That seems really appropriate, right?
Yeah, they could be crime fighters or just lovers or whatever on Fox. It'd be like the new Cops. It'd be like Cops.
But, it's all about belief versus science. Sort of like dogma versus facts, or however you want to spin it, which I feel is very much like what his media empire is all about.
And both of those signs have issues with boundaries. So this is the positive version of that, a black woman priest and a white converted scientist getting together. So the normal boundaries are being transcended for the purposes of love. But that could also, if you just think about, well, what's the dark side or the dysfunctional version of boundaries dropping? Well, deception, confusion, so on and so forth. But,
I think that's actually very perceptive. You're absolutely right.
Oh, thank you.
He is all about that.
Coming from a person with Mercury, Mars, and Pisces, that actually means quite a bit there.
Oh, well, No, I think that's very true. Cool. But interesting, yeah. I'm just looking at his chart. He's got a lot of interesting things that are very good for money. He's got Saturn in Capricorn on his second house cusp, and of course the second house is your finances, and he's got Venus in there as well. So, it's the old astrologers used to say that when Saturn or Mars, which are considered the malefic planets that bring suffering, when they're connected with your financials in some way, but they're strong, like they're in their own sign as they are in his chart, it basically says that the person will become wealthy, but they might do it in a way that is somehow illicit or, not quite good for other people, basically, or even for themselves, which seems really apropos here. Yeah.
Obviously, for folks listening, that's not across the board, but it would be one of those things that you might
say. And it depends on a lot of other factors.
Right. So we are coming to the end of the hour, and it has been a pleasure having you on, my fellow barrister and astrologer. and we'll if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Well, on one of my many phones.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm on the web, so it's probably the easiest because, there's all my contact info and everything. I'm at gryphonastrology.com. That's GRYPHON astrology.com. And, Nina Gryphon. That's my name. So if you just look me up or Google me, there I am. And feel free to email me, or there's my phone number as well. So just give me a call.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on. And
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we'll get the MP3s up. Well, probably next week because I'm going to be out of town for a few days. So, but yeah, they'll be up and great. So
sounds great. Well, It's been a pleasure, Matt.
All right, thank you. All right,
thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, folks, that is pretty much it for today's show. You've been listening to KOWS LP 107.3 FM, Occidental, California.